In this week's episode of One Piece, Luffy and the remaining Straw Hat Pirates prepare to make landfall on the island of Zou, a big-ass elephant in the middle of a big-ass ocean, and the Blackbeard Pirates have discovered the location of the revolutionary headquarters, and prepare to blow the shit out of it. Not only that, but we are formally introduced to the grotesque and destructive Edward Weevil, the self-proclaimed son of Whitebeard. I think we can all agree that the highlight of this week's episode was Kanjuro's adorable dragon. Yes, it was poorly drawn and looks like something that was done by a preschooler, but you just can't help but fall in love with this goofy-looking dragon with a pig nose. We all know that Nico Robin did. A lot of big things went down in this week's episode of One Piece. Brand new characters were introduced, old characters made their grand and flashy returns like Buggy the Clown, and not to mention the frickin' Blackbeard Pirates getting ready to attack the revolutionary headquarters. I think, to me, honestly, that's probably the biggest event of this episode, because as the revolutionaries returned to Baltigo, it looks like Jesus Burgess hitched a ride along, and this gave him the perfect opportunity to get in contact with his team as they prepare to steal all of these weapons, which I'm sure is going to be a very exciting event. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about the brand new character who was introduced in this episode, the self-proclaimed son of Whitebeard, Edward Weevil. The One Piece series does a really great job of walking that thin line between being extremely goofy and extremely badass all at the same time, and I think that Edward Weevil is the perfect example of that. I mean, he's a big dumb doofus who can destroy things with his massive Bacento weapon, but he's just so damned goofy looking, not to mention his mother is too, the former lover of Whitebeard, who goes by the name of Miss Bakken. Now, the only reason they seem to be causing all of this destruction is because they're looking for the remnants of Whitebeard's crew so that they can inherit all of his gold. Essentially, Miss Bakken is a gold digger and Edward Weevil is along for the ride. But he's one of the warlords, which makes him a pretty important character, and he also seems to have his own motivation. He wants to go after Blackbeard personally for killing Whitebeard. And just the concept of this is insane. They might actually be, like, telling the truth, but I have a feeling that they are basically con artists. Like, they're trying to make it seem like this is actually the son of Whitebeard when it really isn't. I mean, yes, he does have the same mustache, but aside from that, that's about all he really has in relation to Whitebeard, aside from the fact that he's big. But still, they look nothing alike. I mean, he's the exact opposite of Whitebeard in just about every way. One of them's super muscly, one of them is super not muscly. That being said, Edward Weevil is a big dumb idiot, and you just can't help but like him. A fan-favorite character made a reappearance in this episode, one of my favorite characters from the series, despite the fact that he can be quite irritating and grating at times, is Buggy the freaking Clown. That is right. Because of Doflamingo's operation going into the dirt, it looks like he's going to be taking over and reaping all of the rewards. However, there are going to be some complications, as it looks like he was teamed up with Harudine, that one giant from Dressrosa, and he's decided to leave Buggy's guild, and this really pisses him off, especially when he learns the circumstances behind that, when his old rival Straw Hat Luffy is definitely responsible for all of this. That being said, I love Buggy in this episode, especially his brand new look. He's wearing these robes, and he's using his Devil Fruit ability to extend his arms out, and it just makes him seem so much more larger than life, despite the fact that we all kind of know that Buggy the Clown is a little bit of a bitch. Even though it's easy to make fun of Buggy the Clown, I still love the character, and it was great to see him this week. And then, of course, there's the island of Zou itself. The Straw Hat Pirates are the ones that are remaining with Luffy, are getting ready to go onto the island. And I think they did a pretty good job of establishing the just absolute massive scale of this elephant, but there were a few scenes that didn't look that well animated. That being said, I really loved this one shot of the elephant's foot moving across the screen. It's like extreme close-up, and it takes forever for this foot to go across the screen. It's like the frickin' Spaceball 1 from Spaceballs. It just goes on for way too long, but it does a great job of establishing how massive this creature is. So because it's going to be moving constantly, they're gonna have to be really quick about how they get to this island. And Bartolomeo creates this awesome bridge with his barrier, which allows the Straw Hat Pirates to go away. And of course, this is going to be the big final farewell with Bartolomeo until he inevitably returns to help out his #1 favorite pirate. And then that leads us to Kanjuro and his amazing snake dragon thing. I love his drawings. It's so different from the character of Sai in Naruto, who also has the special ability to draw objects and bring them to life. In that series, he always makes them look kind of realistic, but also stylistic at the same time. But Kanjuro's drawings just look hilarious, so incredibly cartoonish, almost like something you would see like from a preschooler. It kind of reminds me of the art from Yoshi's Island on Super Nintendo. So he creates this pitifully adorable dragon that's going to climb up the leg of the elephant while they all hang on. The reason this scene is so great is because Nico Robin silently keeps saying in her head, "This thing is so cute." And it's just adorable seeing Nico Robin do something like this. Not to mention, I love the scene where Dragon earlier on in the episode is asking about Nico Robin. I still can't wait to see what her connection to the revolutionaries is going to be. I mean, we know she spent some time with them, but I can't wait to see why she seems to have such a strong connection with Luffy's father and how this is all going to come to a head later on in the story. It's really interesting stuff. I love the way that they plant seeds for things that are going to happen later in the One Piece series. It's a really great way to build up some hype, and this was definitely a hype-building episode. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Piece? A very solid episode with a lot of big world events going on and the progression of the next arc of the series. Seeing Edward Weevil was awesome. Very different from the way that I saw it in the manga version. I loved his introduction with the fire all over the place, and then we finally get to see him in the light, and he's just goofy and ridiculous looking. I was really waiting to hear his voice too, to see what it was going to sound like, and basically, he just sounds like a dimwit, which for a character like him is actually kind of fitting. His mother too is just also really damn funny. Thinking that Whitebeard used to hit that? Nah, there's no way. These people have to be con artists. But like I said though, aside from that and the Straw Hat Pirates going to the island of Zou, for me the biggest event is the Blackbeard Pirates getting ready to assault the revolutionary headquarters to possibly take down Dragon and steal all of these weapons. Jesus Burgess has been through some serious shit, and yet that guy still manages to kick and still manages to have his ridiculous laugh. The Blackbeard Pirates are such fantastic villains, and it was great to see some more of them in this week's episode, like Lafitte and Shiryu. They're really interesting characters who still haven't revealed all of their big powers and movesets, so that makes them really mysterious and just fun villains overall. That being said, this was a pretty damn solid episode of One Piece all around with some really big events going down, new characters, return of classic characters, and the beginning of the Zou arc. I cannot wait until we finally go onto the island in next week's episode. It's just going to get really fun with all the new characters being introduced. Just strap yourselves in, guys. It's going to be exciting. That being said, this was an okay episode right here. There were some animation moments that I think were a little lazy and weird looking, like when we saw the elephant moving. It just didn't seem all that animated, and I understand that's because it's just absolutely massive and it really shouldn't look all that fluid because of how big it is, but it just seemed kind of lazy in some parts. That being said, I love that shot of the leg going across the screen for a disgusting amount of time. I think it did a great job of showing just how big this thing was. It was also really funny to see the Thousand Sunny being pulled by its leg because it is actually attached to it and everything, and they're constantly having to keep up with the ship. So it was a really nice visual right there, not to mention just everything else in the episode just worked for me. It's why I love the One Piece anime series. It's just so grand and awesome. And that's exactly what this week's episode was all about. So I'm going to give this one right here a 4 out of 5. Some animation and artworks moments looked a little but for the most part, this was a solid-ass episode of One Piece. So check it out, One Piece fans. You might see something you like. But if any of you did watch this week's episode of One Piece, why don't you tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. What did you think of the introduction of Edward Weevil? What do you think of that character? Do you really think that he's the son of Whitebeard? And what about the Blackbeard Pirates getting ready to take down the Revolutionary Army? And what do you hope to see from the rest of the Zou arc? Thank you guys for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with all of your friends. Thank you guys again for watching. And as always, stay dandy, baby.